I haven't really talked about the DC universe at all that much, and I feel like I should do that a little bit. The DC movies have ended up being a bit of a mess, and they really shouldn't be in this situation. The characters that DC Warner Brothers has access to are really cool. The movies they've made with them are not. Except for this one. It's pretty good. So I'm going to go into this sort of movie by movie. Let's start at the beginning. I've talked about Man of Steel already, so I won't dwell too much on it here, but Man of Steel started this universe off with a really weird tone, probably because they were trying to tell an alien invasion storyline featuring Superman rather than a pure Superman story. And this idea isn't terrible or uninteresting, but it does lead to a few characterization problems for future movies that I'll get into in a moment. Man of Steel did start the trend of DC movies being mostly well cast. Mostly. This was still very early stages, though, and there was plenty of hope for a cool and interesting universe to come later on. And I'll say, too, that the darker tone isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't have to be doom and gloom all the time. The Dark Knight trilogy was dark, but there were still fun moments to be had in those movies. There were moments of levity and characters with large amounts of optimism that kept the mood up throughout. Despite the darkness of scenes like Rachel's death and Harvey's fall from grace, the movie still had a lot of fun because there was hope for the future woven into the narrative. Also, they're just really good movies. And I only bring up the Dark Knight movies because Warner Brothers was clearly hoping to replicate the style and success of them in their attempt at Superman. Also, back to my point about characterization problems. Having Superman himself be really mopey and upset most of the time causes an issue for me when we get to the next movie. Batman v Superman. The first 10 minutes or so of this movie are awesome. We get Batman's motivation for disliking Superman and establish Affleck's Bruce Wayne as a total badass. Then things start going off the rails a little bit. The movie wastes a ton of time on this desert sequence as it's meant to motivate Batman against Superman, but it's totally redundant as the opening scene already did that. It also doesn't even make sense unless you watch the extended version of the film, as essential elements of the sequence are removed from the theatrical cut. Moving on from that, Batman v Superman is where the characterization of Superman in Man of Steel becomes an issue. Superman in these movies is dark, brooding, and sad all the time, but he's still meant to be in contrast to Batman, who is also dark, brooding, and sad. Yes, I know there's much more to both characters, but that's not the point here. By making Superman so dark, I think the filmmakers thought that they needed to make Batman even darker. Hence, Murderous Batman and this line.
Tell me. Do you bleed?
Now, I don't have a problem changing an aspect of a character when adapting from source material, but allowing Batman to kill fundamentally breaks the conceit of this character. And yes, if you were on the fence about this, he absolutely kills. These guys are 100% less alive than they were 10 minutes before. Now, the reason this breaks Batman is that there is no reason for villains like the Joker to still be milling around Gotham at this point. This version of Batman would have killed them long ago. So here's a quick fix for this aspect. If you left Man of Steel as is, but change Batman back to his no-killing self, Superman killing Zod just adds another layer to Batman's motivation to fight Superman. From Bruce's perspective, Superman is a dangerous alien who can cause a lot of damage, who is willing to kill when put in a tight spot. In the movie as is, their entire conflict is just fueled by Lex Luthor tricking them into fighting each other, as opposed to differing viewpoints or ideologies, like a movie with a similar promised premise from Marvel. Speaking of Lex, we come to the best example of a miscast character in the whole series. Now, Eisenberg is a great actor in the right roles, and I do think he did what he was told to do here very well. But the character choices they made for Lex are just so baffling. Why base one of your most well-known villains off of Max Landis? I just don't get it. Lex is both unintimidating and annoying in Batman v Superman. Now, I'm not going to complain about the fact that Lex had his art department create logos for each of the Justice League members here, because while this is incredibly dumb, this Lex Luthor, the guy who stuffs a Jolly Rancher into another man's mouth, would absolutely order his art department to do that. The inclusion of all these Justice League members in this email, and the inclusion of Wonder Woman, though, in the movie shows just how much Warner Brothers wanted to fast-track to Justice League. They went for building the house before the foundation was even poured, and thus started to ensure the collapse of that house. Also, killing Superman here was a mistake, which I'll explain once I get into Justice League. Now on to Suicide Squad, and I honestly don't have as much to say about this one other than it's a ton of wasted potential. Suicide Squad's a great concept. Once again, great casting choices, particularly Will Smith and Margot Robbie. Not yet sure how I feel about Jared Leto's Joker, as he's only on screen for like 10 minutes or so, but I hate his tattoos and his grills. This movie is just a mess, though, which isn't surprising considering Warner Brothers took control away from the director and then gave the movie to a trailer park to edit. And good God, though, the exposition dump at the beginning of this movie in the form of those dossiers on every single squad member was such garbage and took forever to get through. Everything said in that sequence is something we should have been able to learn through character actions throughout the plot. From there, we go to Wonder Woman. This movie's great. I guess you probably want to hear a bit more than that. To illustrate a point from earlier, this movie does go to some dark places at times, but it still manages to be fun all the way through, and most importantly, Diana is a positive force in the movie and impacts those around her in positive ways consistently. Had Man of Steel kept its tone, but made Superman more positive in this way, we may be in a very different position now than we are with the DC movies. Now on to Justice League, and here is where all the mistakes, big and small, from previous movies caused the house to come crumbling down. This movie was put in a position to do far too much for what it was. First, of course, it had to have its own plot. Then it has to resurrect Superman, which takes a lot of time. It also has to introduce the characters of Aquaman, Flash, and Cyborg. All of this, as per studio mandate, had to be accomplished in under 2 hours. And for the record, it's definitely doable to make an ensemble movie without movies beforehand setting up all the characters. Guardians of the Galaxy had 5 main characters and established all of them just fine, but it needs to be done well, and it benefits from having a relatively simple narrative. Due to the production issues and reception of previous films, this movie struggled to be a cohesive story. Plus, Cyborg and Steppenwolf were absurdly boring. The Flash was really irritating, at least in my opinion. Warner Brothers simply just wanted this movie to do too many things and would not just let it be its own movie. And thus it failed. And this is the road that led us to here. Where is here, you may ask? Well, Ben Affleck is probably out, maybe out in of the Batman role. I don't know. Nobody knows. The Flash movie is in development hell and has been for some time. There's apparently a Birds of Prey, Suicide Squad 2, and Harley Quinn solo movie, all starring Margot Robbie. Probably can't do all 3. There are 2 Joker movies at some stage in development, one with Leto and one with Joaquin Phoenix. At least Aquaman and Wonder Woman 2 are going smoothly, it seems. The rest just sounds like pure chaos, though. I'm definitely not someone who thinks that every movie franchise needs to map out their story from beginning to end at the start, but building an interconnected universe is one of the times that you should plan ahead a bit more. The sad thing is, I really like the characters that DC has, and the actors they have playing them in the movies are really great. They're just being misused. The CW managed to make a better Justice League movie than Warner Brothers Studios without access to the main Justice League characters. There needs to be some reassessment here. You have access to some of the most iconic characters in media, but can't make a strong series of films about them? Why is that? And with that, I am out for the week. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what you think about the current state of DC movies and what you think they should do going forward. And if you're into these movies, let me know that too, and more power to you. I'm glad you're getting a good enjoyment out of them. And I will see everybody next week. Have a good one, and goodbye.